Okay, welcome. Good morning, you guys. Thanks for coming today. My name is Rebecca. I'm with the State In-Home Supportive Services Program at the Department of Social Services. And I'm here today with some colleagues. We're here today to share some information with you guys about electronic visit verification, also known as EVV. Today we have some information to share with you. We have some videos for you guys to watch, and then we're here to answer questions. Any questions that you may have, we're here to help clarify to make the implementation as easy as possible for EVV in your county. Before we get started, if you have cell phones, if you please put them on silent. We all know everyone has to take calls, no worries. If you just step outside, that would be fantastic. All right, so let's get started. What is EVV? A new federal law that requires the state to electronically collect information about the services IHSS and WPCS providers perform. In addition to the total hours worked on their timesheet, providers will be now required to provide 3 new pieces of information: start time, end time, and location. Start time is the time they perform the very first service of the day for a recipient. End time is the time they perform the very last service of the day for a recipient, even though they may provide services on and off throughout the day. Perhaps they may even leave and come back. We're just looking for that very first service of the day, start time, the time they complete the last service of the day, end time, and location, where the service is that day performed in the home, in the community, or both. In addition to these 3 new pieces of information, we're now required to collect timesheets electronically. Paper timesheets will go away in your county, and recipients and providers will be required to submit approved timesheets electronically using one of the 2 ways we have for them to do that. The first is using the Electronic Services Portal. The Electronic Services Portal is accessible by any device that accesses the internet. A smartphone, a tablet, a computer, a laptop, even the computers at the library. The ESP is being used right now very successfully with recipients and providers. It's been in place for the last couple of years. For those folks who choose not to use the Electronic Services Portal, we also have the telephone timesheet system. The telephone timesheet system is for those who do not have access or wish not to use the internet. And it's a telephone-based automated system that allows IHSS and WPCS recipients and providers to submit approved time electronically. Let's talk a little bit more about the Electronic Services Portal. The Electronic Services Portal is a self-service online website that allows providers and recipients to submit approved time electronically. In addition to submitting timesheets, providers are able to do a ton of self-service things on the Electronic Services Portal. It is a hub of information for them. They can check their payment history and view their timesheets status. Where is their timesheet? At the State Help Desk, we are no longer answering the "Where are my timesheet" calls. Where's my paycheck if it's been less than 10 days? We say it's been less than 10 days. The state has 10 days to process your payment. However, we'll get you signed up for the Electronic Services Portal, and you can check 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and find out where your checks are. Many counties have also started doing this, and we have found that once that we get them signed up for the Electronic Services Portal, not only are they able to check their time, but they're able to start submitting their timesheets using the Electronic Services Portal. Those are less calls into the county. In addition to viewing timesheet and payment history, providers can submit sick leave claims. There's a tab at the top, sick leave claims. They can fill it out electronically and hit submit and submit it right there. They can also enroll in direct deposit. So we have found that providers who are using direct deposit and the Electronic Services Portal are seeing the deposits in their account in 3 to 4 business days after the end of the pay period. That's a huge difference from when they had to send them up to the timesheet processing facility in Chico, wait for them to process, and then get their paper warrant back through the mail. to share a little bit of information with you guys. Legislation was passed this year that requires by July of 2021 that all providers must be on direct deposit. Because we're rolling out EVV right now, we're not making it required right now, but we're making sure that providers know all of the benefits associated with direct deposit, so more and more folks can be on direct deposit. It leaves less folks for us to outreach to next year. So that would be July 2021. So we're gonna start working on that towards the end of the year. No more lost or stolen checks. They get their deposits very fast. Some providers don't have direct deposit because they may not have a bank account, or perhaps they do have a bank account but they have liens and they don't want their money to be taken. You don't have to have a bank account for direct deposit. You can use a reloadable pay card. Many providers out there don't know that's an option. You can find them at the local 7-Eleven. One of the counties did a little bit of research and found out that Walmart has the lowest fee, and they have a reloadable pay card. Those providers who are not using direct deposit, still getting their paper timesheets or paper warrants that may not have bank accounts, are paying those check cashing places a bundle. We know these folks live paycheck to paycheck, don't make a lot of money. We want to help recommend, hey, save your money, get yourself a reloadable pay card, get that direct deposit going. All right, as long as there's hours available on the case and the provider is still eligible, they are able to request a supplemental timesheet if they've forgotten to submit time. This is a wonderful self-service option. They no longer need to call the county for that. The only one thing we need to remember is that a supplemental cannot be requested until the initial is already processed, so that the system knows that there's already initial out there processed. When I'm done sharing information with you today, we have Bill Kramer here, and he's going to show you the changes in the CMIPS screen, so you guys can see how CMIPS has been modified to accommodate for the EVV. All right, we have videos for you to watch today. We have a video on registration, time entry, and approving timesheets using the electronic services portal. These are the same videos we show our recipients and providers. We want to make sure that you guys have the same information that they have, so when they call you, you guys are very familiar with the same information. We try to do our best to be very consistent with our message. We use the same verbiage, we use the same tone in all of our training materials and outreach materials and in our videos, so the recipients and providers are getting a very consistent message. These videos can be found on YouTube as well as the CDSS website for folks to be referred to if they need to be referred to them. They're in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Armenian, and they all have closed captioning in those languages, and those are available out there. We also will be coming out to your county and conducting informational sessions along with county folks. And we show these electronic services portal videos. These are those same ones that we show when we're out. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with registration for the electronic services portal.
Welcome to the Electronic Visit Verification informational video for the Electronic Services Portal website, Recipient Provider Registration. For general assistance with the Electronic Services Portal website, please contact the IHSS Service Desk at 866-376-7066. Select your preferred language and then select the Electronic Services Portal option. To access the Electronic Services Portal website, please visit www.etimesheets.ihss.ca.gov. In this video, we will discuss how to register for an account for the Electronic Services Portal website as a recipient or a provider. Now, let's get started with getting your account registered on the Electronic Services Portal, or ESP. If you are using this website for the first time, you will need to register for an account. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a drop-down list for language options. You may select your preferred language by clicking the drop-down menu. The Electronic Services Portal is available in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Armenian for both recipients and providers. If you have questions before you get started, there is a link under the Register Here link for registration frequently asked questions. This will open a document which provides information for you, such as what information you will need to be able to complete your registration. Once you are ready to begin, on the main website login screen, you will see the Register Here link in blue. Click the Register Here link to start your registration process. After selecting the Register Here link, you will be taken to the Welcome screen. At the top of the screen, you will see a notice which provides information on who has the ability to participate on this website. To get started, you will select if you are a recipient or if you are a provider. After making your selection, click on the Begin Registration Process button. You will then be taken to the Register screen. You will see at the top of your screen your registration progress bar. This will show you your progress of completing the 5 easy steps to register for your account. You will know which step you are currently working on because it will be orange in your progress bar. Your first step, Step 1, will be to enter your user information. This tells us about you and lets the system check for your information in the IHSS or WPCS services program. You will need to enter the following information: your first name, your last name, your date of birth. If you are a provider, you will need to enter your provider number. It should be 9 digits and can be located on any provider paperwork you've received, such as a previous pay stub. Or, if you are a recipient, enter your case number. It should be 7 digits and you may locate your case number on your notices of action. And then, your Social Security number. Please enter only the last 4 digits. If you have entered your information and receive a message informing you that the information is not a match to our records, please contact your local county IHSS or IHO office. Please note that your personal information is not stored in this website. It is only used for the initial verification against what is stored in the IHSS or WPCS system. Once you have completed Step 1, please select the Next button. You will know you have completed a step because it will change from orange to green, and there will be a check mark next to the completed step in your progress bar. After completing Step 1, you will notice on your progress bar that you are on to Step 2. For Step 2, you will enter the following information for your new account. Create your username. Your username is case sensitive and can be anything you want it to be, but must have at least 6 characters. These can be numbers, letters, or symbols. Make sure that it is something you will remember. You will need it to complete your registration and access your account. Then, create your password. Your password is case sensitive and must be at least 8 characters in length and must include a combination of letters, at least 2 numbers, and no special characters, and should not be shared with other people. Again, it should be something you can remember, as you will need it to complete your registration and access your account. Next, confirm your password. Enter the same password as you did above. Then, enter your email address. Enter a valid email address, as this will be used for notifications on your account. You will then need to confirm your email. Enter the same email that you entered above. After completing Step 2, select the Next button. After completing Step 2, you will notice on your progress bar that you are on to Step 3. For Step 3, you will need to answer some security questions. You will choose 3 different security questions from the drop-down list. Click the arrow on the right-hand side of the box to see the questions you can choose from. Make sure your answers to your chosen security questions are hard for others to guess, but easy for you to remember. You will use these questions to complete your registration as well as resetting your password, if necessary. Once you have selected and answered your 3 questions, select the Next button to complete Step 3. After completing Step 3, you will notice on your progress bar that you are on to Step 4, and an email will be sent to you at the valid email address you provided. You will need to verify your email address. Go to your incoming email and check for a message from the IHSS website. If you don't see a message in your inbox, please check your spam folder for the email. Here is a sample of what your email message will look like. When you receive the email, you will be asked to verify your email address. To do this, follow the steps in the email by clicking the Verify My Email Address and Login link. It is important to verify your email address immediately because the email login link is only available for a limited time. You will see when the email login link will time out in the email you receive, similar to this example email. If your email login link times out, you will need to begin the registration process again. Once you have verified your email address and completed Step 4, you will be taken to Step 5 on your progress bar, the Confirm Registration screen. Once on this screen, you will need to enter the following: your username, your password, and you will have to answer one of the 3 security questions you chose when setting up the account. For example, in this sample, you chose to remember the name of your first pet as one of your 3 security questions. Once all of that has been completed, select the Login button. Congratulations! You have completed all 5 steps for your registration. You are now registered and have an account with the Electronic Services Portal website. You will be taken to the main landing page or home page. For providers, you now have the ability to do the following using your account: submit your timesheets in the electronic timesheet system, view payment history, sign up for direct deposit online, and submit a sick leave claim online. Please note, when you are on the main landing page, you will see a list of all the recipients you provide services for. If your recipient has not yet registered for the ESP or the Telephone Timesheet System, TTS, you will see a note under that recipient's name informing you that your recipient needs to register. This concludes the electronic visit verification informational video for the Electronic Services Portal website, Recipient Provider Registration. Please continue to view additional informational videos at the highlighted website address to learn more about the Electronic Services Portal website.
So the help desk, we've hired a whole bunch of people at the help desk. The help desk is available to help folks register for the Electronic Services Portal. The only time that they cannot provide assistance in registering someone is if the information someone's providing does not match that information in CMIPS. If something needs to be updated in CMIPS, they will refer those folks back to the county. Or if they're unable to identify them, verify their identity, perhaps they're giving the wrong date of birth, or they're unable to provide identifying factors. As long as folks are using the same information that's in CMIPS, they can self-register. However, if they're in CMIPS as William and they're trying to register as Bill, that won't work. It has to be that exact match. We've also ran across a couple of folks that are having difficulty registering. It's because they may have multiple last names, and perhaps they use hyphens, but in CMIPS they have spaces. It just needs to match exactly. So this is a good opportunity to make sure that the information in CMIPS is accurate. We've also noticed that folks are sometimes using very long usernames. We tell them to keep it nice, short, and sweet. Username and passwords are both case sensitive. When they register, it's just like any other website. You go on, you pick a username, password, 3 security questions, we shoot you an email, they confirm. Folks have been having a difficult time remembering their security questions. You might recommend that they jot them down, but they should be reminded to put them someplace secure, because your online registration passcode is kind of like your ATM PIN. It's something you want to keep private. We wouldn't want to share that information. The next video we have for you guys to watch is time entry. It's how providers enter their time using the Electronic Services Portal.
Welcome to the Electronic Visit Verification informational video for the Electronic Services Portal website, Time Entry for Providers. For general assistance with the Electronic Services Portal website, please contact the IHSS Service Desk at 866-376-7066. Select your preferred language and then select the Electronic Services Portal option. To access the Electronic Services Portal website, please visit www.etimesheets.ihss.gov. www.cs.ca.gov. In this video, we will discuss how to enter the hours you worked for a recipient and submit your timesheet. To do this, log in by entering your username and password and selecting the Login button. It is important to note that if you enter your username or password incorrectly 5 times in a row, you will be locked out of your account. Please contact the IHSS service desk for assistance. If you are unable to remember your username or password while logging in, select the Forgot Username or Password link to receive a password reset link. Now, let's continue with your time entry. On the main landing page, there are a few different ways you can access your timesheets. One way is to select the Electronic Timesheets link on the top menu bar, and in the drop-down list, select the Timesheet Entry link under the Electronic Timesheets options. Another way you can access your timesheets is to click on the Timesheet Entry link. This will take you to the Timesheet Entry Recipient Selection screen. Please note, the recipient name you see listed on your screen is just for this example. Once you log into your account, you will see the names of your recipient or recipients listed on your home page. Once you are on the Timesheet Entry Recipient Selection screen, you will see a list of all the recipients that you work for. In this example, you have one recipient, Paul Pinetree. On this screen, you can also see information on your most recent payment. For example, the amount on your paycheck, the status of your payment, and the pay period for which you received your payment. To continue to access your timesheets for this recipient, click on the blue arrow on the right side. If you have multiple recipients, select the blue arrow next to the recipient for whom you want to enter your hours worked. Another way to access your timesheets, when you are on the main landing page, click on the recipient's name that you would like to enter your hours worked. After using any of the previously demonstrated ways, you will be taken to the timesheet entry screen. On the left side of the screen, you will be able to select a timesheet from the drop-down box. Please note, there may be multiple timesheets if you work for both WPCS and IHSS, or if you have not submitted timesheets for prior pay periods. Select the timesheet for the pay period you wish to enter time. You will be able to see the timesheet number, the status, as well as the status date. This screen also shows the available hours for the month. Please note, the available hours for the month will decrease after a timesheet has been processed for the month. You can see all of the work weeks that are a part of this pay period. And just below the work weeks is a timesheet total. You will see a total for all of the time you have entered and saved for this pay period. Now, it is time to enter your hours worked for this recipient. To do this, select the arrow for the work week you would like to enter hours for. This will expand the timesheet entry screen. When the work week expands, you will see a column for all of the days within the work week. Remember, work weeks are Sunday through Saturday. To the right, you will see a column for your hours worked. This is where you will enter your time. You have the ability to enter your hours and minutes that you worked. Next, you will see a column to enter your start time, a column to enter your end time, and a column to enter your location. At the bottom of the timesheet, you will see a timesheet total. This will provide a total of the time that you have entered for this timesheet. Below the location column, there is a previously claimed hours total and a work week total, and you will see in this example that it has 10 hours listed for both totals. This is because, in this example, displayed in gray on Sunday, March 31st, you claimed 10 hours from the previous pay period. The days displayed in gray are from a previous pay period and are not eligible for time entry during this pay period. You cannot enter hours here. However, those previously claimed hours are a part of your work week total because they were claimed for the current work week. The days displayed in black are for the days you can enter your time worked. Let's go over what each entry field on your timesheet means. The hours worked are the hours that you worked that day. The minutes worked are the minutes you worked that day. The start time is the time the first service begins on that day for that recipient. The end time is the time the last service is completed on that day for that recipient. And the location. GPS is not tracking your location. You will need to select a location where the services were provided. The options available to you to select are home, community, or both. Select home if the services were provided in your recipient's home. Select community if the services were provided outside of your recipient's home. Or select both if the services were provided both inside your recipient's home and outside your recipient's home during the workday. Here are some helpful hints when filling out your timesheet. The time between your start time and your end time may not match your hours worked for a day. For example, your start time for your recipient was 8 a.m. and your end time for the recipient was 12 p.m. for a total of 4 hours. However, your hours worked for your recipient was 3 hours. Remember, you will be paid based on your total hours worked, not the time between your start time and end time. If you work for multiple recipients on the same day, it is possible for your start times and your end times to overlap for each recipient. Just like today, you will fill out one timesheet for each recipient you provide services for. And you have the ability to fill out your timesheets daily, weekly, or at the end of the pay period, whatever is convenient for you. Now, let's take a look at how to enter time on a timesheet. We will start by entering time for Monday, April 1st. To do this, click the appropriate box, either for hours or minutes in the hours worked column. In our example, in the hours box, we will enter 10, for 10 hours worked on this day. In the minutes box, we will enter 30, for 30 minutes worked on this day. For the start time, we will enter 8 o'clock. In the box next to our start time entry, we need to select if our start time is in the AM or in the PM. To do this, select from a drop-down list. We will select AM. For the end time, we will enter 7 o'clock. And then select PM from the drop-down list. For the location, we need to select if the location of services provided was home, community, or both from the drop-down list. We will select home. On Tuesday, April 2nd, for the hours worked, we will enter 7 hours and 45 minutes. For start time, we will enter 9:30 and select AM. For end time, we will enter 6:45 and select PM. For location, we will select community. On Wednesday, April 3rd, for the hours worked, we will enter 8 hours and 30 minutes. For start time, we will enter 9:15 and select AM. For end time, we will enter 6:30 and select PM. For location, we will select both. We will continue to enter time for the remaining days in the work week. For Thursday, April 4th, our entries are displayed. For Friday, April 5th, our entries are displayed. For Saturday, April 6th, since no time was entered for time worked, start time, end time, and location can all be left blank. Please note, for Thursday, April 4th, our start time entry is 12 a.m. and the end time entry is 11:59 p.m. For those providers whose recipients require services on and off throughout the day, entering 12 a.m. for the start time and 11:59 p.m. for the end time is an acceptable way to enter this time. Please note that if you try to key in a number greater than 24 in the hours box or greater than 59 in the minutes box, an error message will appear and you will need to correct your entry. Notice at the bottom of your screen there is a timesheet total. The timesheet total is a total of all time entered and saved for the timesheet you are entering time. In our example, we see a total of 0 hours. This is because you need to save your time entered. When you save your time entered, the hours and minutes will be updated in the workweek total, 53 hours and 15 minutes, and the timesheet total, 43 hours and 15 minutes. Remember, on Sunday, March 31st, you worked 10 hours, so those hours are added to your work week. You will continue to enter all of the hours or minutes for the days and weeks that you worked in the pay period. To do this, select the arrow to the right of the work week that you want to enter your time worked. Once you have entered all of your hours for the pay period, you will then select the Submit Timesheet button. Please note, you will not be able to submit time for a future date. When entering time for a day, all fields require an entry for that day. You will receive prompts informing you if you made an error while filling out your timesheets. For example, hours entry cannot be greater than 24, or minutes entry cannot be greater than 59, or hours worked cannot be greater than time at location. For example, your start time for your recipient was 8 a.m. and your end time was 12 p.m. for a total of 4 hours. However, your hours worked for your recipient was 6 hours. You will have the ability to correct these mistakes and cannot submit a timesheet with errors. In some instances, after you select the button to submit your timesheet, you may receive a helpful message warning you that the time you entered may cause a timesheet violation. In this example, the hours entered exceed the weekly hours. What this means is, by submitting this timesheet, this might cause you to exceed your monthly overtime hours, which could cause a timesheet violation. If you made a mistake and want to change the time entered, then select the Cancel button. This will take you back to the timesheet entry screen, so you may change any time you have entered. If you are sure the time entered is correct and you still want to submit your time, then select the Continue Submitting Timesheet button. After successfully submitting your timesheet, you will be taken to the electronic signature screen. On this screen, you will read the declaration paragraph and then check the Agree to Terms box that you agree to the terms. Please note that you will not be able to submit your timesheet for recipient review without checking the Agree to Terms box. If you changed your mind or made a mistake, there's still time to fix it. You can select the Cancel Submit button and make your changes. However, if everything is true and correct, you may select the Electronically Sign Timesheet and Submit for Recipient Review button. After you have submitted your timesheet for recipient review, you will see a pop-up box letting you know the timesheet information has been submitted. A notification will be sent to the recipient requesting electronic review of this timesheet. Reminder notifications will be sent periodically to your recipient to remind them they have a timesheet to approve. Then, select the OK button. This concludes the electronic visit verification informational video for the Electronic Services Portal website, Time Entry for Providers. Please continue to view additional informational videos at the highlighted website address to learn more about the Electronic Services Portal website.
Okay, protective supervision. We recognize that protective supervision is a 24-hour need. Folks provide services on and off throughout the day and night. For those folks with protective supervision, it's perfectly okay to put 12 a.m. as your start time and 11:59 as your end time for any day that you have hours worked. We know they're there on and off throughout the day. The same for a live-in provider. When you live in and care for maybe a family member, you don't say, hey dad, it's 8 o'clock, I'm on the books, wake up, it's time to eat. You let your dad wake up whenever he's ready to eat breakfast, you provide those services. So the same is with live-in providers. Start time 12 a.m., end time 11:59 for each day they have hours worked. We still pay based on the total hours worked, just like today. And we're collecting these 3 new pieces of information because the federal government is requiring us to maintain our funding. We want to make sure we're in compliance with the federal government. They provide a lot of funding for the program, and we don't want to jeopardize that. All right, as I mentioned earlier, even though they may leave and come back or maybe provide services for another recipient, they just put that first start time and the end time. I'll give you an example. Perhaps they go and provide services for recipient A. They do some breakfast services. They show up at 8 a.m. in the morning. They do some breakfast, some other services, and they've got them all set up for the TV shows for the day, and they're able to leave at noon. And they go provide services for another recipient. That start time would be 8 a.m. When they go provide services for recipient B, maybe they just do lunch from 12 till 2. Start time would be 12, end time would be 2 o'clock because they're finished for that day. Then when they go back to recipient A, perhaps they go back at 6 o'clock just to do some dinner services down here. They're finished about 8 o'clock. Their start time remains 8 a.m., their end time remains 8 p.m. We recognize that there may be overlap if they have more than one recipient, or perhaps if they take care of 2 recipients in one home, their time may overlap. Some folks provide services maybe in an apartment complex for 2 or 3 recipients, and they may go from recipient place to recipient place. We understand that those times may overlap. The only new error they may see while they're filling out their timesheet is if they try to put a total hours of 4, but the time between their start and end time was only 2 hours. They'll get that error that says total hours worked is greater than time at location, and give them the opportunity to go back and fix that. All right, the next video we have is approving timesheets, and it's how a recipient approves time using the electronic services portal. We'll get started.
Welcome to the Electronic Visit Verification informational video for the Electronic Services Portal website, Approving Timesheets. For general assistance with the Electronic Services Portal website, please contact the IHSS Service Desk at 866-376-7066. Select your preferred language and then select the Electronic Services Portal option. To access the Electronic Services Portal website, please visit www.etimesheets.ihss.ca.gov. In this video, we will discuss how a recipient approves a timesheet using the Electronic Services Portal website. You will be notified once your provider has submitted an electronic timesheet for approval. You may be notified via email, like the one shown, that an electronically submitted timesheet is ready for your review, and a link to approve the timesheet will be provided. Selecting the link will take you to the IHSS Electronic Services Portal website to log in. However, you can also log on to the IHSS Electronic Services Portal website at any time and approve timesheets submitted by your provider by visiting www.etimesheets.ihss.ca.gov. Once you are on the IHSS Electronic Services Portal website login screen, you will log in using your username and password, then select the Login button. It is important to note that if you enter your username or password incorrectly 5 times in a row, you will be locked out of your account. Please contact the IHSS Service Desk for assistance. If you are unable to remember your username or password while logging in, select the Forgot Username or Password link to receive a password reset link. On the main landing page, there are a few different ways you can access the timesheets to review. One way is to select the Electronic Timesheets link on the top menu bar, and another way you can access your timesheets is to click on the Timesheet Review link. This will take you to the Provider Timesheets Provider Selection screen. Please note, the provider name you see listed on your screen is just for this example. Once you log into your account, you will see the names of your provider or providers listed on your home page. Once you are on the Provider Timesheets Provider Selection screen, you will be able to see all the providers who work for you. Please note that if you have more than one assigned provider, you will see them listed on this screen. In this example, you have one provider, Peggy Pinetree, who has one timesheet to review. You can choose the timesheet to review for your provider by selecting the arrow on the right side of your screen. Another way to access your timesheets to review is when you are on the main landing page, under the list of your providers, you can see that a provider has one timesheet to review. To review the timesheet, click on the provider's name. After using any of the previously demonstrated ways to access the timesheets to review, you will be taken to the provider timesheet screen for the selected provider. Select the pay period and the timesheet type, either IHSS or WPCS, by using the drop-down box. You may review and approve or reject each timesheet by looking at the total timesheet hours or looking at the hours entered for each work week and each day individually. This option may assist you in reviewing the timesheet more thoroughly. In this example, you will be reviewing the timesheet by looking at the hours entered for each work week and each day individually. To do this, select the arrow to the corresponding work week you want to review. You have selected to review Work Week 1. After expanding the work week, you can review the following information for each day during the work week: the hours worked, the start time, the end time, and the location submitted by your provider. Please note, if there were no hours worked for a day, then the start time, end time, and location will be left blank. You can see the work week total. This is a total of submitted hours worked for the work week you are reviewing. You can also see the timesheet total. This is a total of all submitted hours worked for the entire timesheet you are reviewing. You can review the remaining work weeks for this timesheet in a similar way by selecting the arrow with the corresponding work week. After reviewing or checking that all the hours entered on the timesheet are correct, you will need to select the Approve Timesheet button for timesheet approval. We will discuss the steps you will take if you need to reject your provider's timesheet later in this lesson. Once you select the Approve Timesheet button on the Provider Timesheets Timesheet Review screen, you will be taken to the electronic signature screen where you can electronically sign the timesheet. If you are not sure the hours submitted by your provider are true and correct, you may select the Cancel and Return to Timesheet button to double-check the hours you are about to approve. If you are sure the hours submitted by your provider are correct, there are 3 very important steps to complete. First, you must read the declaration statement in which you indicate the hours are true and correct. Secondly, you must select the checkbox saying that you agree to the declaration terms. Finally, once you are sure the timesheet is true and correct, you may select the Electronically Sign Timesheet and Submit for Payment button. Once your electronic signature has been captured, you will see a pop-up that states, "This timesheet has been submitted for processing." Then select OK. You will then be taken to the main landing page. Sometimes it is necessary to reject a timesheet that has incorrect hours recorded. Let's go back to the Provider Timesheets Timesheet Review screen. If, after reviewing the timesheet on this screen, you do not agree with the hours and/or minutes submitted by your provider, you can select the Reject Timesheet button. If you reject your provider's timesheet, you will be taken to the Reject Electronic Timesheet screen. If you decide not to reject your provider's timesheet, you can select the Cancel and Return to Timesheet button, which will take you back to the Provider Timesheets Timesheet Review screen. However, if you want to continue with rejecting the timesheet, you must select the Reject Timesheet button. Your provider will then be notified that their timesheet has been rejected. You will see a pop-up that states, "Timesheet has been rejected." Select the OK button and you will be taken to the main landing page. Please note, if you reject the timesheet, you should work with your provider to fix the error so they can resubmit the timesheet for your approval. After approving or rejecting all of your provider's submitted timesheets, you will be taken to the main landing page. In this example, you have no other timesheets to review at this time. This concludes the electronic visit verification informational video for the Electronic Services Portal website, Approving Timesheets. Please continue to view additional informational videos at the highlighted website address to learn more about the Electronic Services Portal website.
So recipients are still responsible to review and approve timesheets twice a month, just like they do now. We have found while we've been reaching out and meeting with recipients and providers that there is a greater need for a timesheet signatory. So California regulation requires that the recipient is an employer and the provider is an employee. We get feedback a little bit sometimes when we're out in the field. We'll have providers say, well, my recipient just doesn't know what time it is when I come, when I go. And we'll say, hey, who signs that timesheet now? And they'll go, well, you know, I do. We'll say, oh, that's fraud. So timesheet signatory, you guys probably know, I'll run through it real quick. It's not a legal designation. It's just someone that the recipient designates to act on their behalf to sign their timesheet twice a month. It can be a friend, a relative, a neighbor, another member of the household. If the son is providing services for the mother in the household, the daughter can be the timesheet signatory. It's just someone that provides that check and balance to make sure that our recipients are getting the services that they should get. A timesheet signatory, some counties are taking their forms, the standard SOC 839, I believe it is, they're taking it out to the counties when they're doing their reassessments. If they have a timesheet signatory on file, we want to make sure that that's working out well for them. If they don't have a timesheet signatory on file and you can kind of tell by your assessment that it looks like they may not be able to manage their timesheets themselves, you recommend to them, hey, is there someone that can be that timesheet signatory for you? All right, let's get going. The telephone timesheet system. What is the telephone timesheet system? It's a self-service interactive voice response telephone system that allows providers and recipients to submit and approve timesheets electronically. In addition to submitting timesheets, providers are also able to listen to timesheet and payment status, but not all of that other information that they can get on the electronic services portal. We really want to encourage providers to use the electronic services portal. Although TTS is relatively easy for the recipients to approve timesheets, for providers to enter time, it's a little time consuming. So we want to make sure that if at all possible that they use the electronic services portal. When they call you and say, hey, as a provider, I'm interested in TTS. First you ask them, hey, can you post to Facebook? Can you send an email? Have you ever bought anything on Amazon? Because if you can do those things, we really recommend you use the electronic services portal. We kind of monitor Facebook pages and stuff out there, and one gal came on and said, I don't know how I'm ever going to do this electronic thing. I don't know how it's going to work. I'm not really good at the computer. Someone responded back and said, if you're able to post this comment, you can post your time. It's easier to post time than it is to tag people and enter comments on Facebook. So we really want to get those folks on the electronic services portal. Registration, we have the same 3 videos: registration, time entry, and approving timesheets. Again, these are the same videos that are available out there for the recipients and providers to see. Although we don't present the telephone timesheet system videos during the informational sessions, we have materials and we let recipients and providers know if they're interested in the TTS to see us after the presentation, and we provide them those additional materials. So we'll get started registration with the telephone timesheet system.
Welcome to the Electronic Visit Verification informational video for the IHSS Telephone Timesheet System, Recipient Provider Registration. For general assistance with the IHSS Telephone Timesheet System, please contact the IHSS Service Desk at 866-376-7066. Select your preferred language and then select the Telephone Timesheet option. In this video, we will discuss how to register for an account for the IHSS Telephone Timesheet System as a recipient or a provider. Now, let's get started with getting your account registered on the IHSS Telephone Timesheet System, or TTS. If you are using this system for the first time, you will need to register for an account. To start the registration process, please call 833-DIAL-EVV or 833-342-5388. After calling the number displayed, the TTS will prompt you.
Thank you for calling the IHSS telephone timesheet system. Please select your preferred language from the following options. You may make your selection at any time. For English, press 1. For Spanish, press 2. For Armenian, press 3. And for Chinese, press 4.
You can make your selection by entering the number into your telephone keypad. After selecting your language, you need to let the system know if you are a recipient or if you are a provider. The TTS will prompt you.
If you are a recipient, please press 1. If you are a provider, please press 2.
On your telephone keypad, enter the corresponding number for your selection. After making your selection, you will be taken to the main menu. The TTS will prompt you.
This is the main menu. Please select from the following options. You may make your selection at any time. Press 1 to log in. Press 2 to reset your passcode. Press 3 for registration.
Since you want to register, on your telephone keypad, press 3. Please note, if you accidentally press the wrong number, for example, pressing 2 instead of pressing 3 for registration, you will be given the option to press 9 to return to the main menu. After choosing Selection 3 to register, you will need to enter some user information. The TTS will tell you that you need the following user information: a 6-digit registration code. Your registration code was mailed to you at an earlier date. If you do not have a registration code, please press 0 for assistance. You will then be transferred to the IHSS service desk. If you are a recipient, you will need your case number. It should be 7 digits and can be located on your notices of action. Or, if you are a provider, you will need your provider number. It should be 9 digits and can be located on any provider paperwork you have received, such as a previous pay stub, and your date of birth. Please note, the user information you enter must match our records to successfully complete your registration. If you receive a message informing you that your entry was not a match or not recognized, please contact your local county IHSS or IHO office to verify your information. When you have the required user information and are ready to continue, press 1. It is now time to enter your user information. The TTS will prompt you.
Using your telephone keypad, please enter your 6-digit registration code followed by the pound key. Your registration code was mailed to you at an earlier date.
On your telephone keypad, enter your 6-digit registration code followed by the pound key. After successfully entering your registration code, you will need to enter either your case number or your provider number, depending on if you are registering as a recipient or as a provider. In this example, we are registering as a recipient. The TTS will prompt you.
Please enter your 7-digit case number followed by the pound key. Your case number is located on any notices of action you have received.
As a recipient, on your telephone keypad, enter your 7-digit case number followed by the pound key. In our next example, we are registering as a provider. The TTS will prompt you.
Please enter your 9-digit provider number followed by the pound key. Your provider number is located on any provider paperwork you have received.
As a provider, on your telephone keypad, enter your 9-digit provider number followed by the pound key. After entering either your case number as a recipient or your provider number as a provider, you will need to enter your date of birth. The TTS will prompt you.
Please enter your date of birth followed by the pound key. Your date of birth should be entered as a 2-digit month, 2-digit day, and 4-digit year. For example, if your birthday is May 12, 1976, then you would enter 0, 5, 1, 2, 1, 976. Please enter your date of birth followed by the pound key.
On your telephone keypad, enter your date of birth in the correct format followed by the pound key. Next, it is time to create your passcode. Make sure that it is something you will remember and do not share your passcode. You will need it to complete your registration and access your account. You will use your passcode when you want to submit a timesheet for your recipient to review or when you want to approve or reject your provider's timesheet. The TTS will prompt you.
Your information has been confirmed. Now you will create your passcode. Your passcode will be a 4-digit number that you will use each time you log into the IHSS telephone timesheet system. Using your telephone keypad, enter the 4-digit number that you want to use as your passcode followed by the pound key.
On your telephone keypad, enter your passcode followed by the pound key. You will then need to confirm your passcode in the system. The TTS will prompt you.
To confirm your passcode, please re-enter the 4-digit number you selected followed by the pound key.
On your telephone keypad, re-enter your passcode followed by the pound key.
Congratulations! Your registration is complete and you are now registered to use the IHSS telephone timesheet system. You will now be taken to the main menu to log in, or you may hang up to end this call.
For recipients, you now have the ability to approve or reject your provider or providers' timesheets using your telephone. For providers, you now have the ability to enter time worked and submit your timesheets to your recipient or recipients using your telephone. This concludes the electronic visit verification informational video for the IHSS telephone timesheet system recipient provider registration. Please continue to view additional informational videos at the highlighted website address to learn more about the IHSS telephone timesheet system.
So about 2 months before we go live in your county, so for you guys last month, we sent a letter out to all of the recipients and providers. We say, hey, EVV's coming your way. Here's your couple of options. You need to pick one of these couple of options. About 1 month before we go live in your county. So really recently, when did those go out? About a week ago. We send a letter out to 2 separate letters. One goes to those folks who have already chosen an option to submit approved timesheets electronically. And we say, hey, EVV is here, but not much changes for you. You have 3 new fields to complete in addition to your total hours worked, and here's the description. For those folks who have not yet chosen an option, we send a letter that says, EVV is here now. You need to choose one of the following 2 options. Here's how you self-register for the electronic services portal, and to self-register for the telephone timesheet system, we've included a letter with a 6-digit registration code on it. It's a one-time use to allow them to register on the telephone. When we're registering using the electronic services portal, we have a little bit more options for identity verification. Not so much on the phone, so we've issued them this one-time use 6-digit registration code that they can use to register. If you guys get calls about that registration code, if they need another one, or if something comes up with it, Bill's gonna show you some magic in CMIPS that shows you how you can work with that registration code letter. So the next video we have for you is time entry using the telephone timesheet system. So when we built this system, we had 2 options. One was to let folks enter all 15 days worth of time in. If they made a mistake, they'd have to go back and re-enter all 15 days. Or we could confirm after their entries, and if they made a mistake, they could go back and fix one of those entries. So that is an awful lot of entries and an awful lot of confirmation. We want to make sure that you guys see this video, so when providers call in and say, hey, I want to use the TTS, you can say, wow, it's really going to take you some time. Perhaps we should also sign you up for the electronic services portal. That way you can use it if you choose not to use the TTS. Or maybe share some training materials. We have all kinds of training materials available out there for you guys. We have them in the 4 threshold languages, English, Spanish, Chinese, and Armenian. We recognize that there's a very diverse language population out there. Los Angeles County has actually been very grateful to share their translations. They have 5 additional languages: Russian, Korean, Tagalog, Farsi, and another one out there I can't seem to remember. If you guys need those languages, just remember to ask your management, because they have access to those for you guys. But when those folks call in and say, hey, I'm just going to use the TTS, we try to share as much information about ESP with providers as we can, because really we want them to be able to do all those self-service items that are available on the electronic services portal that we're doing more and more of, because the more they can help themselves, the less that they call the counties, and then the county folks can focus on the recipients who the program is for. All right, so like I said, we're going to show you 1 day's worth of entry using the telephone timesheet system. When we're done with time entry, we have approving timesheets, and then if we're done answering questions, then we'll hand it off to Bill for the CMIPS screens. All right, let's get started on time entry.
Welcome to the Electronic Visit Verification informational video for the IHSS Telephone Timesheet System, Time Entry for Providers. For general assistance with the IHSS Telephone Timesheet System, or TTS, please contact the IHSS Service Desk at 866-376-7066. Select your preferred language and then select the Telephone Timesheet option. In this video, we will discuss how to complete and submit an EVV timesheet for the IHSS Telephone Timesheet System. To begin, you need to log into your account by calling 833 dial EVV or 833-342-5388. After calling the number displayed, the TTS will prompt you.
Thank you for calling the IHSS Telephone Timesheet System. Please select your preferred language from the following options. You may make your selection at any time. For English, press 1. For Spanish, press 2. For Armenian, press 3. And for Chinese, press 4.
You can make your selection by entering the number into your telephone keypad. After selecting your language, you need to let the system know if you are a recipient or if you are a provider. As a provider, on your telephone keypad, press 2. After making your selection as a provider, you will be taken to the main menu and you will choose from the following options. Press 1 to log in, press 2 to reset your passcode, press 3 for registration. Press 1 on your telephone keypad to log in. Please note, if you accidentally press the wrong number, for example pressing 2 or 3 instead of pressing 1 to log in, you will be given the option to press 9 to return to the main menu. After choosing selection 1 to log in, you will need to enter some user information. You will need your 9-digit provider number. Enter your 9-digit provider number followed by the pound key. Finally, you will need your 4-digit passcode. Enter your 4-digit passcode followed by the pound key. After you have successfully logged into your account, you will be taken to the activity menu. Press 1 to enter time for today, or press 2 to enter time for a previous day. In our example for this video, you will be entering time for today. On your telephone keypad, you will press 1. After selecting which day you would like to enter your time worked, you need to select your recipient. If you have multiple recipients, the TTS will continue to list your recipients until you make a selection. If you have timesheets for IHSS and WPCS, you will need to select the program type. In our example, you only have one recipient, John Oaktree, for the IHSS program. The TTS will prompt you.
Would you like to enter time work today for John Oaktree? Press 1 for yes, or press 2 for no.
Since you want to enter time for today for your recipient, John Oaktree, on your telephone keypad, press 1. The TTS will then search if time has already been entered for today. If you have already entered time for today, you will be given the option to edit your entry. In our example, today's date is March 15th, 2019, and no time has been entered for today. The TTS will prompt you.
For March 15th, 2019, No time has been entered. To enter time for this date, press 1. If you do not want to enter time for this date, press 2.
Since you want to enter time for today, on your telephone keypad, press 1. Now, let's demonstrate how to enter time using TTS. Let's go over what information is required to complete your EVV timesheet. Hours worked. These are the hours you worked that day. Minutes worked. These are the minutes you worked that day. The start time. This is the time the first service began on that day. The end time. This is the time the last service was completed for that day. And the location. GPS is not tracking your location. Since GPS is not tracking location, you will need to select a location where the services were provided. The options available to select are home, community, or both. Home is when services are provided in the recipient's home. Community is when services are provided outside of the recipient's home. And both is when services are provided both inside the recipient's home and outside the recipient's home during the workday. Here are some helpful hints when filling out your timesheet. The time between start time and end time does not have to match the hours worked for a day. For example, your start time for your recipient was 8 a.m. and your end time was 12 p.m. for a total of 4 hours. However, your hours worked for your recipient was 3 hours. You will be paid based on your total hours worked, not the time between your start time and end time. If you work for multiple recipients on the same day, it is possible for the start times and end times to overlap for each recipient. Just like today, you will fill out one timesheet for each recipient you provide services for. Because entering time with the TTS takes a little bit longer than entering time online through the Electronic Services Portal, you are encouraged to enter your time worked daily, if possible. However, you have the ability to fill out your timesheets daily, weekly, or at the end of the pay period, whatever is convenient for you. Let's demonstrate how these entries will work, starting with the hours worked entry. To assist you in understanding the flow in your time entry process, in this demonstration, there will be a visual aid of an electronic timesheet. In our demonstration, the visual timesheet will populate as you enter your information using the TTS. Also in this demonstration, you will only be entering time for one day for this timesheet. In our demonstration, you have logged into your TTS account and have selected to enter time on an IHSS timesheet for your recipient, John Oaktree. You are entering time for Friday, March 15th, 2019. The TTS will prompt you.
Please enter your hours worked as a 2-digit number. For example, if you worked 4 hours, you would enter 04. Enter your hours worked followed by the pound key.
On this day, you worked 9 hours. You need to enter those 9 hours into your telephone. So, on your telephone keypad, you will enter 0, 9, and then the pound key. You can see on the timesheet that 09 is now entered in the hours column. After selecting the pound key, the TTS will prompt you to confirm your entry. For example, the TTS will prompt you.
You have entered 9 hours. If this is correct, press 1 or press 2 to edit this entry.
Since your entry is correct, you want to confirm your entry. On your telephone keypad, you will press 1. Next, you will enter your minutes worked for this day. The TTS will prompt you.
Please enter your minutes worked as a 2-digit number. For example, if you worked 30 minutes, you would enter 30. Enter your minutes worked followed by the pound key.
On this day, you worked 30 minutes. You need to enter those 30 minutes into your telephone. So, on your telephone keypad, you will enter 3, 0, and then the pound key. You can see on the timesheet that 30 is now entered in the minutes column. Similar to after entering your hours, the TTS will prompt you to confirm your minutes entry. Next, you will enter your start time for this day. The TTS will prompt you.
Please enter the time you started services on March 15th, 2019 as a 4-digit number. The entry should be in a 12-hour time format. For example, if you started performing services at 9:15, you should enter 0, 9, 1, 5. Please enter your start time followed by the pound key.
On this day, your start time is 8:15. You need to enter 8:15 into your telephone. So, on your telephone keypad, you will enter 0, 8, 1, 5, and then the pound key. You can see on the timesheet that 8:15 is now entered for the start time. The TTS will prompt you to confirm your start time entry. Next, you will enter whether your start time is for the AM or PM for this day. The TTS will prompt you.
For the start time, press 1 if the service was started in the AM. Press 2 if the service was started in the PM.
On this day, your start time is in the AM. Since your entry is for the AM, on your telephone keypad, you will press 1. You can see on the timesheet that AM is now entered for the start time. The TTS will again prompt you to confirm your entry. After selecting that your start time was in the AM, you will need to confirm your entire start time entry. The TTS will prompt you.
You started performing services at 8:15 a.m. If this is correct, press 1. If this is not correct, press 2.
Since your entry is correct, you want to confirm your entry. On your telephone keypad, you will press 1. Next, you will enter your end time for this day. The end time is entered the same way that the start time is entered. For this demonstration, to skip ahead, the end time has been entered at 6 p.m. You can see on the timesheet that 6 p.m. is now entered for the end time. Please note, for those providers whose recipients require services on and off throughout the day, entering 12 a.m. for the start time and 11:59 p.m. for the end time is an acceptable way to enter this time. Next, you will enter your location for services performed for this day. The TTS will prompt you.
Please choose the location where services were performed on March 15th, 2019. Press 1 for home, press 2 for community, press 3 for both.
On this day, your location is home. Since your entry is for home, on your telephone keypad, you will press 1. You can see on the timesheet that home is now entered for the location. The TTS will prompt you to confirm your location entry. Next, you will need to confirm your entire daily entry. The TTS will prompt you.
For March 15th, 2019, you have entered 9 hours and 30 minutes for services provided to John Oaktree for the IHSS program. The start time for services was 8:15 a.m. The end time of services was 6 p.m. and the location where the services were performed was selected as home. To save this entry, press 1. If you do not want to save this entry, press 2.
Since your entry is correct, you want to confirm your entry. On your telephone keypad, you will press 1. After saving your daily entry, you will be prompted for if you want to submit the timesheet to your recipient to review. The TTS will prompt you.
Your entry has been saved. If this is your last entry for this timesheet and you would like to submit this for recipient review, press 1.
For our demonstration, this is your last daily entry for your timesheet. so it's ready to submit to your recipient. To do this, on your telephone keypad, you will press 1. If you do not press 1, you will be taken back to the activity menu. After selecting to submit your timesheet to your recipient, the TTS will prompt you.
To electronically sign and submit your individual provider initial timesheet for the IHSS program for your recipient, John Oaktree, for the pay period beginning March 1st, 2019 and ending March 15th, 2019 for a total of 93 hours and 30 minutes claimed, please listen to the following message. I declare that the information on this timesheet is true and correct. I understand that any false claim may be prosecuted under federal and state laws, and that if convicted of fraud, I may also be subject to civil penalties.
Once you become familiar with using the TTS and the prompts to enter your time, you can bypass each prompt and make your entry to quicken the time entry process. However, you must listen to the entire declaration message before submitting your timesheet to your recipient. After listening to the declaration message, the TTS will prompt you to submit your timesheet. You will use your 4-digit passcode to electronically sign your timesheet. The TTS will prompt you.
Your 4-digit passcode will be used to confirm your electronic signature on this timesheet. Please enter your 4-digit passcode followed by the pound key.
On your telephone keypad, enter your 4-digit passcode followed by the pound key. After successfully entering your 4-digit passcode, the TTS will prompt you.
Your timesheet has been successfully submitted for recipient review. Your recipient will be notified.
You will then be able to request a printed copy of the timesheet be mailed to you. Finally, you will be returned to the activity menu, or you may hang up at any time. When entering time for a day, all fields require an entry for that day. You will receive prompts informing you if you made an error while filling out your timesheets. For example, hours entry cannot be greater than 24, or minutes entry cannot be greater than 59, or hours worked cannot be greater than time at location. For example, your start time for your recipient was 8 a.m. and your end time was 12 p.m. for a total of 4 hours. However, your hours worked for your recipient was 6 hours. You will have the ability to correct these mistakes and cannot submit a timesheet with errors. You will also receive a helpful message warning you if your time entered may cause a timesheet violation. For example, the hours claimed for work week 3 exceeds the amount of overtime for this case. This can cause a violation. Or, the hours claimed for work week 2 exceeds the weekly maximum of 66. This can cause a violation. This concludes the electronic visit verification informational video for the IHSS telephone timesheet system, time entry for providers. Please continue to view additional informational videos at the highlighted website address to learn more about the IHSS telephone timesheet system.
Okay, I didn't lie to you. Putting time in takes some time for providers. For those providers who really choose to use the TTS, and hey, just to let you know, we have providers using it now successfully. It's working for them. We recommend that they enter their time daily. When they call into the telephone timesheet system, they get a couple of options. Enter time for today or enter time for another day. When they enter time for today, it takes them right to time entry. When they enter time for another day, they have to pick that pay period, and time frame takes a little more time. Another thing that we're recommending to providers is that they complete their timesheets when they're done with the last workday of the pay period. So we used to not encourage providers to submit their timesheets early, because if they had to work after they'd submitted their timesheet, then they had to contact the county for a supplemental timesheet. Now that we have this self-service option, what we have told providers is that on the last day that you work of a pay period, if you work Mondays and Wednesday's the 12th, you'll no longer be working in that pay period. Before you leave your recipient's house, complete your timesheet. You can use whatever method it is that you're using to enter your timesheet, and then your recipient can in turn right then and there work with you to approve that timesheet, just like you would review your calendar with them or your paper timesheet. That way, if there's any discrepancies, you can either adjust it or your recipient can reject your timesheet. You can fix it right then and there, and then you can get it submitted. What we'll do is we give them a note that says, hey, you've submitted it early, but it's not a penalty. We just hang on to that timesheet till the very first day of the next pay period, process it first thing in the morning for them. Then if they're using direct deposit, 3 to 4 business days, they'll have their check in their account, and that's fantastic. All right, so let's move on to the last video, approving timesheets. I'm using the telephone timesheet system, and then we'll swap you on over to Bill, talk about the CMIPS screen, get you guys out of here for your afternoon, okay? Thanks.
Welcome to the Electronic Visit Verification informational video for the IHSS telephone timesheet system, approving timesheets. For general assistance with the IHSS telephone timesheet system, or TTS, please contact the IHSS service desk at 866-376-7066. Select your preferred language and then select the telephone timesheet option. In this video, we will discuss how a recipient approves a timesheet using the IHSS telephone timesheet system. After your provider has submitted a timesheet for your review, there are 2 ways to access the submitted timesheet to review. The first way is, the TTS will call you to let you know you have a timesheet to review. After you answer the call from the TTS, you need to log into your account. You do this by entering your 7-digit case number and your 4-digit passcode. The second way is, you can call the TTS to review the submitted timesheet. You can call the TTS if you missed the call from the TTS and need to call back to review your provider's timesheet, or if you do not want to wait for the TTS to call you, recipients should call 833-DIAL-EVV or 833-342-5388. After calling the number, you will choose from the following options. Press 1 to log in, press 2 to reset your passcode, press 3 for registration. Press 1 to log into your account. Please note, if you accidentally press the wrong number, for example pressing 2 or 3 instead of pressing 1 to log in, you will be given the option to press 9 to return to the main menu. After pressing 1 from the main menu, log into your account by entering your 7-digit case number and your 4-digit passcode. Once you log into your account, you will be taken to the activity menu to access your provider's timesheet for review. For our example in this video, we will demonstrate the process for when the TTS calls the recipient. In our demonstration, your name is John Oaktree, and you are reviewing an IHSS timesheet for your provider, Jane Oaktree. When the TTS calls and you answer the call, the TTS will prompt you.
Hello, this is the IHSS telephone timesheet system. There is a timesheet ready for John Oaktree's review. If this is the IHSS or WPCS recipient and you would like to log in, please press 1. If you are not the recipient, press 5. To place this call on hold while you notify the recipient of the call and bring them to the phone.
Since you are the recipient, on your telephone keypad, press 1. After letting the system know that you are the recipient, you need to log into your account. To do this, you will need to enter some user information. The TTS will prompt you.
You have chosen to log in. Enter your 7-digit case number. Your case number is located on any notices of action you have received. Please enter your 7-digit case number followed by the pound key.
On your telephone keypad, enter your 7-digit case number followed by the pound key. Next, you need to enter your passcode that was created during registration. The TTS will prompt you.
Using your telephone keypad, please enter your 4-digit passcode followed by the pound key.
On your telephone keypad, enter your passcode followed by the pound key. After you have successfully logged into your account, you will be taken to the Activity menu. The TTS will prompt you.
Welcome to the Activity menu. Please press 1 to review and take action on any pending timesheets. Press 2 to review approval or denial actions you have taken on timesheets for the previous 3 months. To repeat this information, press 7.
In our example for this video, you will be reviewing and taking action on a pending timesheet that was submitted by your provider. On your telephone keypad, press 1. After selecting to review and take action on a pending timesheet, the TTS will prompt you.
You have an individual provider initial timesheet for the IHSS program for review. This timesheet was submitted by your provider, Jane Oaktree, for the pay period beginning March 1st, 2019 and ending March 15th, 2019 for a total of 93 hours and 30 minutes claimed.
Next, you will select how you want to review and take action on the timesheet. The TTS will prompt you.
Press 1 to review the weekly totals for hours claimed. Press 2 to hear the daily hours claimed. Press 3 to approve this timesheet. Press 4 to reject this timesheet and return it to your provider.
In our example, you want to review the timesheet by daily hours claimed. Since you want to review the timesheet by daily hours claimed, on your telephone keypad, press 2. To assist you in understanding the flow in your review process, in this demonstration, there will be a visual aid of an electronic timesheet. In our demonstration, the visual timesheet will highlight the corresponding fields as the TTS goes over the information. In our demonstration, you will review the daily hours claimed for only 1 day. In this example, you will skip ahead and review the last day of the pay period, March 15th, 2019. The TTS will prompt you.
At any time during the daily review, press 8 to return to the Review Options menu. For March 15th, 2019, 9 hours and 30 minutes have been claimed. The start time for services was 8:15 a.m. The end time of services was 6 p.m. and the location where the services were performed was home.
If there are more days remaining on the timesheet to review, the TTS will move on to the next day and prompt you with the entry. The TTS will repeat this process until all days on the timesheet have been reviewed. But remember, in this demonstration, you will only be reviewing time entry for 1 day for this timesheet, so the daily timesheet review is complete. The TTS will prompt you.
Daily timesheet review is complete. Press 1 to approve this timesheet. Press 2 to reject this timesheet.
Since the entry is correct, you choose to approve the timesheet. On your telephone keypad, you will press 1. We will demonstrate how to reject a timesheet a little later in this video. After selecting to approve the timesheet, the TTS will prompt you.
To complete approval and electronically sign this timesheet, please listen to the following message. I declare that the information on this timesheet is true and correct. I understand that any false claim may be prosecuted under federal and state laws, and that if convicted of fraud, I may also be subject to civil penalties.
After listening to the declaration message, the TTS will prompt you.
To confirm approval and sign this timesheet, please press 1. To cancel approval of this timesheet, press 2.
To confirm your approval, on your telephone keypad, press 1. After confirming that you want to approve the timesheet, you need to electronically sign it. The TTS will prompt you.
Your 4-digit passcode will be used to confirm your electronic signature on this timesheet. Please enter your 4-digit passcode followed by the pound key.
On your telephone keypad, enter your passcode followed by the pound key. After successfully entering your 4-digit passcode, the TTS will prompt you.
You have approved this timesheet.
After you have successfully approved the timesheet, you will then be able to request a printed copy of the timesheet be mailed to you after it has been processed. If there are more timesheets for you to review, the TTS will prompt you.
To review the next timesheet, please press 2.
However, if you do not have any additional timesheets to review, the TTS will prompt you.
You have no additional timesheets to review. Thank you for using the IHSS telephone timesheet system. Goodbye.
Sometimes it is necessary to reject a timesheet submitted by your provider. To do this, let's go back to when you finished reviewing the timesheet. The TTS will prompt you.
Daily timesheet review is complete. Press 1 to approve this timesheet. Press 2 to reject this timesheet.
Since you want to reject the timesheet, on your telephone keypad, press 2. After selecting to reject the timesheet, the TTS will prompt you.
To confirm rejection of this timesheet, please enter your 4-digit passcode followed by the pound key.
On your telephone keypad, enter your passcode followed by the pound key. After successfully entering your passcode, the TTS will prompt you.
You have rejected this timesheet. Your provider will be notified. Please discuss the reason for rejection with your provider.
This concludes the electronic visit verification informational video for the IHSS telephone timesheet system approving timesheets. Please continue to view additional informational videos at the highlighted website address to learn more about the IHSS telephone timesheet system.
All right, so once the provider submits their timesheets when recipients use telephone timesheet to approve, once a provider submits a timesheet, it puts them into a call campaign. We begin calling recipients from 9 a.m. in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday. We call them every 2 hours until we get an answer. If we get an answer or an answering machine, we no longer call that day, but if the timesheet remains unapproved at the end of the night, we pick it back up on the next day. The call campaign will start again. Recipients don't need to wait for that call to approve a timesheet. Once a provider submits that timesheet, it's immediately available for them to approve. They can just call the 1-833 dial EVV number. They don't need to wait for that call, and they can approve it right then and there. That goes along with how we're recommending that the recipient or the providers complete their timesheets, and then the recipient, they work with their recipient right there to approve it. All right, so that wraps up my portion of the videos and sharing information. The next chunk we have for you, I'm going to hand over to Bill Kramer. There'll be just one moment while we hand off the microphone. I'll be handing out a job aid for you guys to refer to. The job aid, the first several pages, has some screenshots of what you've seen today. Starting on magic page 18 will be the screens that Bill's going to go over in CMIPS so you guys can follow along. We just recently released the all-county letter, the ACL, for EVV, and the CMIPS one for EVV is coming right out as well. Oh, and it's also out. This job aid is excerpts from that ACL. Sometimes counties will take that ACL and make their own job aid or their own work guide. If that happens in your county, just remember that we'll replace this job aid for you. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to Bill Kramer.
All right, so everybody got the job aid. Good. So, where are we? There we are. So what you saw today as we were going through these videos is you really saw that electronic visit verification built upon what we were already doing for providers and recipients with electronic timesheets. So a lot of the functionality has been in place for the last 2.5 years or so as providers have been doing timesheets electronically. We've obviously expanded on it to add the additional electronic visit verification information. Similarly, we've expanded on what was already in CMIPS, already available to you all to support the users of electronic timesheets. So we've really done two things in CMIPS. We've expanded to add additional functionality to support some of the functions for electronic visit verification, but also, and more importantly, we've really tried to simplify how it all works. We've simplified it by bringing everything together into one place, into one screen that you'll use to support recipients or providers in EVV. And let's go ahead and take a look at that screen. So the screen I'm going to show you and I'll walk you through here today is the View Recipient Timesheet Preferences screen. That's that one screen in CMIPS that has all of the EVV functionality. Similarly for providers, there's a View Provider Timesheet Preferences screen. Looks very much like this. We do a bit more for recipients than we do for providers, so there's a bit more functionality on the recipient screen. So I'm going to walk you through that recipient screen and talk about the different things that are on there. And as there are differences between the recipient and provider versions, I'll be sure to point them out so you'll understand what you can and can't do for providers. So in terms of accessing the screen, very easy to find. When you're on a recipient's case, you simply click on the Timesheets and Payroll tab and the Preferences menu on the left side. Similarly for a provider, if you're viewing the provider, you would click on the Payroll and Timesheets tab and the Preferences menu on the left side. It'll take you to the screen. So let's just take a look at this at a high level, what's on the screen. If we work our way from the top down, the first thing we see is a list of all of the providers who are associated with this recipient's case. We see information on that provider's EVV effective date. We see information to let us know whether they've registered with the telephone timesheet system or the electronic services portal. So it gives us that kind of one quick snapshot view of that entire recipient case and associated providers so we understand their status with EVV. Moving down the screen, the next area that we have is information on that recipient's use of the electronic services portal. Are they registered? Are they using it? Below that, we have information on that recipient's use of the telephone timesheet system. Are they a registered user of that? Next, we have information on what we call timesheet accommodations. What kinds of accommodations are in place for this particular recipient? And then finally, at the bottom, we have information on the communication preference for that particular recipient, how they want to be notified about timesheets to be approved. So let's go ahead and take a look at each of these in a bit more detail. So the first area is the electronic services portal. So this was actually existing functionality. It was already in CMIPS. It was on a different screen that was called the IHSS website registration. So what we've done is we've moved that over here onto the View Recipient Timesheet Preferences screen. And this tells us a couple of different things. First, it shows us whether or not this particular recipient is registered as a user of the ESP. If they are, we see their registration date, we see their status, and also, and very importantly, we see their username. And that's really helpful to us because, as you heard in the videos, usernames and passwords are case sensitive. And a lot of times, recipients and providers don't necessarily realize that they may have used uppercase letters or lowercase letters, how they actually set up their username. So they're struggling trying to log in and they can't seem to manage. And one of the primary reasons for this is most of our users are using smartphones when they register. That's how they access the internet. So with like my iPhone, for instance, when I'm just typing in general, so like when I'm setting up a username, it wants to capitalize that first letter for me. It's kind of helping me write properly. So a lot of users end up with a capital letter as the first letter of their username, and they don't necessarily realize it because the phone just sort of defaulted that to an uppercase letter. So it's really nice for us to be able to come out here, take a look at that username, and help them understand that, oh no, Bill, you started your username with a capital B, not a lowercase. The other thing that we can do on this screen, specifically for recipients, is what we call inactivating and reactivating their registration. So what this is for are situations, and some questions came up about this, situations where somebody has created an account using this recipient's information without their knowledge or consent. So perhaps the provider has set up an account using that recipient's case information and is now attempting to just approve their own timesheets, obviously doing this fraudulently without the recipient's involvement, without the recipient's consent. In situations like that, we can do what's called inactivating the account. So that button you see that says reactivate, that button would say inactivate IHSS ESP registration. When you click on that button, what happens is the system actually goes out and places a lock on that ESP account so that nobody can log into it, nobody can reset the password. Even if an account hadn't even been created, nobody can register a new account for that recipient's case. It places a complete block on that. This can be done sort of after the fact if a recipient's become aware that the provider or somebody has done this. It can even be done preemptively. So a recipient is going to use the telephone. He's not going to use the ESP. He doesn't have access to the internet, and he's concerned that maybe his provider might try to set something up without his permission, without his knowledge. They can actually ask for you to inactivate that account preemptively. So you could go ahead and click that inactivate button, and that would prevent anybody from even being able to register as that particular recipient on the ESP. So, once we've inactivated the account, it's possible that the recipient's going to change their mind. Maybe they now have access to the internet. Somebody gave them an iPhone for Christmas and they want to actually try doing it on the ESP rather than over the telephone. In that particular case, you can simply reactivate that account. All you do is click that reactivate IHSS ESP registration button. Takes you to a screen where you're going to enter some comments about that reactivation. Go ahead and click yes. And that will essentially remove that block, remove that inactivation. If there was an account that had already been created, all of that existing account information would be wiped out. So now this recipient would just register as a new user, just like you saw on that first video. So this functionality is really intended for situations like I was describing, where somebody has fraudulently created an account or created an account without the recipient's knowledge or consent. It's not really intended, and some folks have misunderstood, it's not intended for simple things like, oh, the recipient forgot their password, so they need their password reset. Well, I'll just inactivate their account and they can just completely register as a whole new user and that'll take care of it. Yes, that takes care of it, but that's an awful lot of work for them. It's way overkill, if you will, for that kind of a situation. Even situations where I heard a question come up earlier about the recipient had worked with their provider. The provider helped them get set up. They were using that provider's email address and all of that. But now that provider's left and they have a new provider that's working with them. What can we do in those situations? We have the ability to update their email address. So they now have a different email address. They're working maybe with a different provider and sharing their email address or whatever the case may be. So we have the ability to update their email address in CMIPS. Using that new updated email address, they can reset their passcode or their password for the ESP. So, whether they can remember the security questions or not, they can still reset their password. They can then update their security questions. So really, even in a situation where they've essentially gotten a whole new provider who's going to help them with new email and all of that, we can still do that without having to inactivate and reactivate their account. So I stress that just because, for our recipients, a lot of them aren't necessarily, real computer savvy. They don't use, computers much as in their day-to-day life. So I try to avoid having to have them go through that registration process multiple times. But obviously, if the situation warrants it, you can inactivate and reactivate their access, and they would be able just to register as a brand new user. All right, so again, just to stress that inactivate, reactivate functionality is only available for recipients. On the provider version of the screen, you'll still see the information about their registration, seeing their username, all of that. You just won't have the inactivate and reactivate functionality. All right, let's go ahead and continue on. The next area that we'll talk about, moving down on the screen, is the telephone timesheet system cluster. So what this is showing us is whether this particular recipient or provider is registered as a user of the telephone timesheet system, and then it'll give us some tools and some functionality to assist them either with that registration or after they've registered. So what we try to do on this screen is we try to keep it as simple and easy to use as possible by only showing you the information that's relevant based on the status of the recipient or provider. So in this particular case, this recipient is not registered for the telephone timesheet system. So what I see on the screen is I see their registration code, that 6-digit registration code that they'll use to register. I also see a button that allows me to reset their registration code, and I see a button that actually allows me to register them. If they were registered for the telephone timesheet system, I wouldn't see any of that because that's no longer of any use to me. What I would see instead are things like their registration date, so I know that they're registered. I would see a button to allow me to reset their passcode in case they've forgotten it. I would see information letting me know whether they've locked their account or not. So we try to keep it simple by only showing you what's relevant. So in this particular case, our recipient is not registered. So they may be trying to register, they've called up on the phone, they've started to work their way through those menus, and it's asked them for their 6-digit registration code, and they don't have it. They can't find the letter, they don't ever remember receiving the letter. So they might call you, they might call our help desk. We can come out to this screen and we can actually see their 6-digit registration code right here. I could just give them that code right over the phone, and they'd be able to now continue on and register themselves. But it may be that they've lost the letter, they're concerned that their provider may have gotten a hold of the letter, that provider might now be able to create an account without their knowledge. They want a new registration code issued to them. You can do that. You can click that button that says Reset Registration Code, and when you do that, you're taken to a screen where the system automatically generates a new 6-digit registration code for this particular recipient or provider. You can just read that code to them over the phone. That way they're able to get themselves registered. But maybe it's not the recipient calling, maybe it's somebody calling on their behalf. So you don't want to just give them the code. What you want to do is send a new letter out. So you can choose from here where you want that letter printed. Do you want it printed as part, on your CMIPS 2 printer as part of the overnight batch? Do you want it printed immediately on your CMIPS 2 printer? Or like I say, maybe you just are reading them the registration code over the phone. But frankly, all of these, I think, are probably not the ideal solution. If you've actually got the recipient or provider on the phone and because they're trying to register to use the telephone timesheet system, you can register them right there on the spot. All you have to do is click that Register Recipient for TTS or the provider button on the provider screen. And when you do that, it takes you to a screen where all you have to do is ask them what they want to use for their 4-digit passcode. They'll probably give you something super secure, nobody would ever guess, like 1234. You enter that passcode in, enter it in to confirm, click register, and that's it. That completely registers them as a user of the telephone timesheet system. So we do this a lot when we're doing those information sessions where we're actually helping recipients and providers get registered with the ESP. Some of the folks want to actually be telephone timesheet users, so we'll just straight from within CMIPS there while we're working with them, we'll go ahead and register them. It takes 5 seconds to get them registered. So if you've got them on the phone and they're calling about their reg code because they're trying to get registered, just register them right there on the spot. It's the easiest thing to do. So the next area of the screen to talk about is the timesheet accommodations cluster. So timesheet accommodations has been something that's been in place for a number of years. What we've previously done is on the blind and visually impaired screen is where we tracked this information. And this was specifically for our blind or visually impaired recipients, giving them for the visually impaired, giving them an accommodation of a large font version of the timesheet. And then for the blind recipients, giving them the accommodation of the telephone timesheet system. So as Rebecca had mentioned, and as you heard in the videos, the EVV telephone timesheet system that our recipients and providers will be using, and then what you saw in those videos, it's all based on the user entering information on their telephone keypad. So when it prompts them, press 1 for this, press 2 for that, or it prompts them using your telephone keypad, enter your 7-digit case number or your 9-digit provider number. It's all based on doing that entry on the keypad. And for blind recipients, that doesn't necessarily always work out well. Obviously a lot of times, traditionally with an old landline telephone, it had a physical keypad on it. So you could, like a typewriter, you could sort of tell where your fingers were and you kind of know the layout of the keypad, and you could do it without necessarily looking at it. But nowadays, folks are using smartphones. That's just a smooth plate of glass. So you really don't have that tactile sense of where your fingers are. So the accommodation allows them to press or say the digits. So they don't actually have to press the digit on the keypad. They can simply speak the 1, 2, 3, speak the digits into the phone. This is great, like I say, for the blind recipients. It's also helpful maybe for somebody with a physical disability where pressing the digits on the keypad might be difficult to do. So, that kind of accommodation might be helpful for folks beyond just blind recipients. Let me stress that the press or say option, the accommodation line for recipients, only supports English and Spanish, so it only recognizes the speech entry in English and Spanish. The other thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about, one of the observations that we've had as we've been working with some of our recipients in developing this electronic visit verification and just trying to learn from what folks are already experiencing with the telephone timesheet system. It was a real interesting session that we had with a blind recipient. So she was a user of the prior accommodation line that supported both press and say. She was also a user of a smartphone. So again, you really have no sense for where your finger is. So as you're trying to press digits, what she has on her smartphone is screen reading software. So what it's doing is as she's moving her finger around on the telephone keypad on the smartphone, it's actually speaking the digits to her so she knows where her finger is. So when she gets to the one that she wants, she can press it. Really cool, except that our telephone timesheet system is listening to all those numbers being spoken, thinking all of those numbers are the input that she's giving us for the telephone, and it obviously totally confuses the system because it doesn't know what's a real entry and what's just the phone helping her. So in a situation like that, although the blind recipients were kind of our target audience for this accommodation line. For somebody like her who's using that sort of assistive technology on her phone, she would probably be better served actually using the regular EVV line, the one that accepts just the pressing of digits, because that's ultimately what she's doing, is finding the right digit she wants and then pressing it. So I say that just so you think about as you're setting up accommodations or as you're looking at recipients who may need accommodations, just to understand what might be the best solution for them based on how they actually use the phone. So when you have a recipient who needs the accommodation, setting it up is actually very easy to do. All you do is hit the Edit Timesheet Accommodations button. Takes you to a screen where you'll choose from the drop-down menu what accommodation they want. So, the options available there are no accommodation, of course. The large font timesheet, which is still an option available because there are a number of counties who've not yet begun transitioning to EVV. They're still using paper timesheets, so we have that available. But for you all, the accommodation you'd be choosing is the press or say TTS. So you would simply select that, save it, and that's all. Now, I pointed out that the press or say version only supports English and Spanish. If you're setting up a recipient with the press or say option and their spoken language is something other than English or Spanish, their spoken language in CMIPS, the system will still accept that. It'll allow you to set that up because they might be using a signatory or somebody else who's doing it on their behalf, and English or Spanish is fine. But what it will do is the system will give you a message letting you know or reminding you that the press or say option only supports English or Spanish. Okay? And you probably aren't going to have a whole lot of need for it. You can't mess it up, so it should be good. All right, then let's move on to our last item on this screen, and that's the communication preference. So prior to EVV, recipients could only register for one option. They could either choose to use the telephone or they could choose to use the ESP. They couldn't actually register for both. So when their provider submitted a timesheet and we needed to notify them that they have a timesheet to approve, it was very easy for us. If they were registered for the telephone, we called them. If they were a user of the ESP, we sent them an email. Now recipients actually have the option of registering to use both systems. So as a result, we need to keep track of how they want to be contacted. What's their preference? Do they want to receive a phone call or do they want to receive an email? That's what this communication preference tells us. It tells us which method to use to actually contact them. It's pretty much maintained self-service though, so there's not a whole lot that you'll have to do with it. When the recipient registers for the telephone timesheet system, we'll set the option to be telephone. If they register for the ESP, we set the option to be email. If they happen to be registering for both, when they're doing that second registration, we ask them a couple of additional questions about which way they'd prefer to be contacted so that we can set that option appropriately. They even have the ability, once they've set it up, once they've registered, they can go into the preferences screen in the ESP and they can update it. If they've changed their mind, they don't want to get phone calls anymore, they'd rather receive an email, they can maintain all of that through the self-service. But of course, not everybody's going to be able to handle maintaining it themselves. We know that. So what we've done is we've given you this screen to allow you to actually update the communication preference if a recipient's contacting you, wants it to be changed, and isn't able to get it, updated themselves, using the ESP. So in those particular cases, all you have to do is click that edit button. Takes you to a screen where you're going to choose from the drop down what their preference is, telephone or email. It's pretty foolproof. You can't mess it up. If they're not registered for the telephone timesheet system, it won't let you choose telephone as the option. If they're not registered for the ESP, it won't let you choose email as the option. So, you can't mess them up, you can't break it. Probably not gonna have to use it very often anyway, but should you need to change that, this is where you would do it. Choose the option, click save, and that's all there is to it. This is specifically for recipients, so we only maintain this communication preference for recipients. Providers do have the ability to, of course, use the telephone and the ESP and can be a user of both. In the case of a provider, the reason we need to contact them is if their recipient has rejected their timesheet. We need to let them know that the recipient's rejected it so they can go back out there and they can fix it. In that particular case, the way we contact them is using whatever method they used to submit that timesheet. So if they submitted it over the phone, we'll give them a phone call if their recipient rejects it. If they submitted it over the ESP, we'll send them an email if their recipients rejected it. So that's the end of the View Recipient Timesheet Preferences screen. So I want to talk a little bit about some additional functionality that we have and some changes that we've made to just existing things within CMIPS. And Rebecca had mentioned a little bit about this as she was talking. We have situations obviously that come up where the recipient's passed away, or maybe they're temporarily unavailable, they're in the hospital, or they're in a skilled nursing facility, or any number of different reasons, and they're not available to approve that timesheet that provider has submitted, and obviously we want to get that provider paid. So in situations like that, you continue to have the ability to actually produce a paper timesheet. You go to the timesheet issuance screen in CMIPS and you can issue a paper timesheet for that one-off pay period that needs to be processed, or whether it's that final pay period because the recipient's passed away, or a pay period when they went into the hospital, whatever the case may be. You can generate that paper timesheet, and then following your existing county business process, whether that's the supervisor who signs it, or the social worker, or the family member, whatever, you'll be able to continue doing that. Now, as Rebecca has said, we're working on additional functionality that will allow you here in the county to actually electronically approve the timesheet that the provider submitted. So we won't, in the future, once that's implemented, we won't need to do paper any longer. But for right now, we're just going to continue to use the paper process in those kinds of situations. The last screen I want to talk about is the View Timesheet screen. We've made some changes here, again, to support some of the electronic visit verification functionality. If you recall, when we first implemented electronic timesheets back, 2.5 years ago, since there was no longer a paper timesheet and thus no longer a scanned image of that paper timesheet, we needed to put into place some functionality for you all here in the counties. So when you have situation arise where perhaps you got an investigation on a particular case or a hearing on a case, and you need hard copies of the timesheets that were submitted, we put into place, we built that, you see it in the upper left, that print e-timesheet link. So when you clicked on that link from within CMIPS, what we would do is we would open up in a new window essentially a hard copy version of that electronically submitted timesheet. We would use the standard paper timesheet form, and we'd put onto that form all of the information that provider had electronically submitted, all of his daily hours and all of that. So we've expanded on that now for EVV. When the timesheet that you're requesting was an EVV timesheet, the form that we create, the version of the timesheet that we produce for you, is an expanded version that also contains the electronic visit verification information. It has that start time, end time, and location on each of the daily entries, just as the provider had submitted it. So you'll be able to generate that for regular or EVV timesheets for whatever purposes you might have here in the county. The other thing you probably heard as we were listening to those videos on the telephone timesheet system is that when a provider is submitting their timesheet or when a recipient is approving the timesheet, they actually have the option of requesting that a hard copy of that timesheet be mailed to them. So when they do that, when they make that request, we actually produce a hard copy. It's printed out of our centralized print center and mailed by us. It doesn't happen here in the county. But there may be situations where they wanted to request one, but they forgot to choose the option, or perhaps they just realized later that they actually needed a hard copy of that. So they might contact you here in the county and want a copy of a timesheet sent to them. What you have available to you are two links on the screen. You see one here with the little box around it, send hard copy to recipient, and another one, send hard copy to provider. And when you click on that link, we will do just like when they requested it over the telephone. We will produce a hard copy of it at our centralized print center and mail that out to them. So, that's obviously there to support our folks who are using the telephone, but equally a provider who's using ESP or a recipient who's using ESP might contact you and want a hard copy of a timesheet sent to them. So you can use this in both situations. However, for our folks that are using ESP, we're actually working on some additional functionality for them, a better solution for them, which is they'll be able to request themselves directly from within the ESP, request to have a copy of a timesheet emailed to them. So we'll create a PDF copy of that timesheet and email it to their email address. So if they have need for copies, they'll be able to request them that way. That's in development right now. It's not something that's available currently. We're working on it, so it's probably a couple months down the road we should have that functionality available for recipients and providers. Yeah, exactly. Making it quick, you betcha. So, questions on that? All right. Then the last thing to talk about is, because we've now expanded the way folks can access EVV, recipients can actually be a registered user of both the telephone and the website. Providers now have an option to use the telephone as well as the website. We've needed to expand what we capture as our electronic signature information. So now what we capture for electronic signatures when the provider submits the timesheet and when the recipient approves the timesheet is we capture the date and timestamp of when that action occurred, but also we capture the method they use. What system were they using? Did they use the telephone or did they use the website? So we'll see that information on the View Timesheet screen here in CMIPS, just like you see right there. We'll also print that information on any of those hard copy versions of the timesheet that I was talking about. So we'll have all the details about date, time, and what method they actually used to submit and approve that timesheet. Questions on that? All right, well, that's what I have. So if there are questions on any of this or just anything else that you might have questions on, I'm happy to answer them. No? If not, then thank you for coming. Thank you for participating. That's all we have.